Christina? No, she's gone again.
You said everything was optional. Some people mean.
No, I know, but it's good to know if anybody is here. I mean, or it's true, it's optional. But does anybody know who's not here? Or anybody know?
Chris isn't here. I don't think she'll be coming.
She's not coming back. What did you say?
She's
relaxing.
No, she's not relaxing, but she won't be here for this session.
Oh, okay, fine. You mean she's
relaxing?
Okay, she's not relaxing. I'm sorry. Okay, what else? Who else do we know about? I'm sorry, I'll be coughing terribly. Who else do we know about? Anybody who's not here? Do we know what they're not doing? Not relaxing, not being happy, not sleeping, not dead. No, we don't know anybody else. Okay, so you all had fun today? Did do different things? Okay, good. So our little sessions, we'll always start with a little kind of, it's a prayer, but it's an aspiration really. It's got two parts. And the first two lines are expressing what we call as Buddhists taking refuge. It's like reiterating those of us in the room who already commit to Buddhism, our reliance upon the Buddha, just reminding us of that. And the second two lines are stating our purpose, as we might say, for doing this little activity together, in this case, this 1 hour or so. And why not have the most altruistic, the most expansive motivation is altruism. Why not have that? So we're thinking even just for this hour, we're together, we'll chat about Buddhism, sow seeds in our mind, listen to these teachings, so we can take some tools from it. It's got to be practical. And it will help us develop our own amazing potential so we can help others. That's the altruistic part. Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi pesonam ki drola penchir sangye dropa shog sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi pesonam ki drola penchir sangye dropa shog sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi pesonam ki drola penchir sangye dropa shog. Well, the Buddha's view is that every millisecond of what we think, feel, do, say, every millisecond is part of this process of the way they call it in Buddhism, of creating karma, of this process of sowing seeds, basically. Every millisecond of what we think and do and say, none of it goes astray. All of it leaves seeds or imprints or tendencies in our mind that will necessarily, as seeds, ripen in the future as our experiences. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama said one time, the law of karma, which is the Buddha's view of the universe, is actually like self-creation, which is really quite a hilarious idea, really. I mean, there's nothing remotely like that. We either think God made us, or we think Mummy and Daddy made us, Well, he says, sorry guys, Buddha says we made ourselves. So initially it's a weird concept. What do we mean by that, So this is the fundamental the two fundamental things here implied, which is the basis of all of Buddhist philosophy, all of Buddhist practice, all of Buddhist psychology, all of Buddhist metaphysics, is this idea about what the mind is and how it works, Every millisecond, what we think and feel and therefore do and say are the actors in this process of sowing seeds that ripen in the future further along on this mental continuum of ours, one of the terms they use in Buddhist psychology for our mind, not this static box of things tucked away in there called a brain, but a kind of a fluid continuity of mental moments, a river of mental moments. That if we go backwards, we could track it back to infinite time, and if we go forwards, we'll track it forward to infinite time. It's beginningless and endless, as nutty as that sounds to us. We'll unpack all these ideas to see if we can get our head around them even intellectually, So the implication, the really tasty experiential implication of this idea of the law of karma, that everything we think and do and say produces who we are, is very tasty. You know, I mean, and in one sense we understand it exactly, we just don't call it that. We know when we learn music, learn mathematics, learn how to make cakes, learn how to walk, learn how to drive a car, learn anything, it's the process of programming yourself. It's one way of putting it. Every single thing you do on that piano, you learn to listen to the theories, and then you put your fingers on the piano and you try to obey those theories and play those notes, and you practice it and practice it and practice it, and guess what? You've just produced a musician. You produced your own musician. When you practice making cakes, you produce your own cook. You produce your own everything. We get that when it comes to intellectual and creative pursuits. But it's very fascinating. We've got a completely different set of rules when it comes to emotional things, you know. But for Buddha, it's exactly the same. We know very well if you practice piano, you get good at it. If you practice music, if you practice mathematics, you get good at it. Well, the Buddha says if you practice being loving and kind and generous, you'll get good at it. And if you practice anger and neurosis, you'll get good at it. But we don't think that way, you know. Because ego kind of is this ridiculous part of us that works, that can't stand to take responsibility for this part. We're honoured to take responsibility for being good at music, or for that matter, not being good at music. Well, yes, I confess I didn't practice well enough. Either way, we know we produce the result. Your lousy practice brings a lousy musician. But when it comes to emotional stuff, we have this very dualistic, ridiculous idea that something out there somehow is the blame for our happiness and suffering. Why are you happy, Robina? Oh, Chuck's so kind to me. Why are you good at piano, Robina? Oh, Mr. Steinway made such a good piano. That's not, we accept he did, but that's not the main cause of you being a good musician. Steinway's part of it. Bach is part of it. Your music teacher's part of it. But we all know we are the main cause of being good at music. We're honoured to own that. And if we're crummy at it, we don't blame this piano. We don't blame Bach. Well, Bach wrote really crummy music. It's not my fault. We wouldn't say that. But we say it when it comes to emotional stuff. It's very interesting. For the Buddha, it's exactly the same. No difference. Whatever you think and do and say with music, all plays its role in producing the musician you become. Whatever you do on the tennis court plays a role in the tennis player you become. And whatever we do emotionally produces the person we become. That's Buddha's idea. Except he makes extension of not just this life, but from previous and continuous. And there's logic within that, within the rules of Buddhist views. You know, we'll go into all this. But the real point of this is we know it's, I've got to produce a musician. I've got to work hard. I've got to make effort. I've got to go against the tendency to be lazy and can't be bothered. I've got to stop blaming everybody else. I've got to be disciplined and focused so I can become the musician I want to become. That's exactly the Buddha's view about what we can become. We've got this amazing potential to be this kind, wise, compassionate, confident, content human being, and we have to do the job. We have to do the job. We rely upon the outside world, but we are the boss. Fact for the Buddha. That's, I know when I first heard the Buddhist teachings, I didn't quite get the view of karma, but hearing it already resonated something for me, you know. It was something that had been missing in my life, I remember. And for me over the years, it's been one of the central component of Buddhism that I find so powerful, you know, that everything flows from that. Initially, it doesn't seem this way. Many Buddhists don't even like the idea of karma. I've got a bunch of friends in New York who are like social worker Buddhists. They don't even mention karma. They feel embarrassed. They think the West thinks it's ridiculous, you know, and the West does. But, you know, it's Buddha's teaching. It's Buddha's view. It's his observation. So this is a really interesting point about the Buddha. We're so used to the Christian and the Muslim view of religion, a creator, that we're used to the concept of God's law. It's a really powerful point, this. There's God's law, you know, which means God's the boss. God made things up, and I'm not complaining. So God is the boss. God runs the show. And the key reason, like I always quote my Jesuit priest friend, when I asked him, by definition, what is a sin? A negative action, as the Buddhists would call it. He said, by definition, what makes it a sin is the fact that God said not to do it. And that completely makes sense if there is, with the view, there is a creator who created me, and the rules naturally has to be obeyed and therefore holds the power to punish or reward. Now that's our view of morality. Don't blame your Catholic mother or your Jewish mother for this. It's ego's view. Buddha disagrees with it. It's dualistic, he says. So the point about for the Buddha, he is not a creator. He doesn't assert a creator. There is no concept like that. For the Buddha, I'm not being rude, it's like a ridiculous idea. He doesn't say it like that. Philosophically, it's not on, you know. There's all the extensive debates over the centuries, exactly what they're on about. All the Buddhist teachings about how this is not a valid position. He's not being argumentative, it's his viewpoint, based on his own experience. So for him, the law of karma runs the show, and it's not Buddha's law, there's no equivalent. In a conventional sense, as Buddha's law, like, you know, Buddha developed these different rules of behavior. When monks live together in a house, you know, there are certain rules, but they're not natural negativities. When it comes to natural negativities, that's what they call, you know, that's what Buddha calls natural law. So, for example, you know, entry-level junior school grade 1 recommendation by the Buddha of a good practice, entry-level junior school grade 1, immediate practice, most urgent, as Lama Zopa says. The first level is doing what sounds like what Jesus said. Don't kill, don't jump on the wrong partner, don't lie, don't steal. But the reason is fundamentally different. I can't stress this enough. The reason, the main reason to not kill for the Buddha is because he said not to. Sorry, God, Jesus, sorry, wrong one. It's very funny, when I was a Catholic, you know, I loved God. I was in love with God. When I first went to Mass, I knew it was my job. I announced I was going to be a priest. And I think I was so little, I couldn't comprehend intellectually the reason, because I wasn't a boy, you know. Like, I still wanted to be a priest, and they're the boss. I didn't want to be the altar boy, I want to be the priest. You understand? So for me, even when I was in love with God, thinking about God all the time, I loved the idea that God knew everything, and I love the idea that God is everywhere, you know. But I never thought of God as my creator. All the years I was a Catholic, and I was devoted, believe me. I mean, I was naughty but devoted. Mass every morning, knew the Mass in Latin. You know, understand? Never thought of him as my creator, ever. So it wasn't a problem to give him up. I had no problem when I was 19. Goodbye God, hello boys, you know. Can't have both if you're a good Catholic, can you? And I didn't like guilt. Guilt was boring. I never liked guilt. That was ridiculous. That's demented. To be tortured about something, that's stupid. Anyway, Buddha, he's not a creator. So therefore, his role in our life, he says what Jesus says, don't kill, don't lie, don't steal. But because why? You've got to ask the reason. This is a really huge one. So first of all, define a sin for Jesus and the Muslims, it's what God said not to do. My priest friend said there is some aspect of natural law, meaning people don't like getting killed. Well, that's all there is for the Buddha. It's a natural law. Check out, he says, do your market research and you will discover nobody likes getting killed. That's what makes it wrong. So interesting. That's what makes it wrong, you know, because it hurts people. But what's fascinating, at this first level of practice, compassion's way too advanced. The first level of practice for the Buddha, and I swear to you, people who have been Buddhists 20, 30, 40 years, we still don't get this one. Because we've got the dualistic view deep in our bones. It's a function of ego grasping. For the Buddha's view, the reason he exhorts us not to kill, because Robina, honey, it'll harm you. This is words that are easy, but it takes so much time to internalize this. In exactly the same way, you go to your doctor and she suggests you don't smoke. Why, doctor? Well, darling, it could cause you to get cancer. And you don't say to her, who do you think you are telling me I shouldn't smoke? You mean you're going to punish me with cancer if I smoke? We don't say that. We understand where she's coming from. That's exactly the Buddha. No more and no less. He's a wise advisor that we choose or not to follow, based on checking up on his reputation, checking up on his medicine, checking up on his other patients to see if he's a valid guy, you know. Exactly the same. But it takes so long to hear it because we've got this really neurotic, ego-based, fear-based, schizophrenic, as Lama Yeshe would put it, politely dualistic view about good and bad. It's what someone else says you shouldn't do. That's how we all think. It's exactly the same as my mother's household. Don't do that, she'll say. And being a smarty pants, I will say, why not? We know her answer, same as God, because I say so. And that's our view of morality. We walk around the world, hope, you know, the police, the judge, some they out there, mummy, daddy, whoever, the bosses, all kind of pushing on top of me, telling me what to do. That's how we think about it. That's why we get all resentful. Don't you tell me what to do. And that's why if we do something good, we want to be seen to be good and we want praise, please. And if we do something naughty, we hope no one caught us. And then we think, oh, I got away with it. Well, for Buddha, that's ridiculous. That's like, you know, when your doctor says don't smoke and you think about her advice and you go home and you notice she's not there, out come the Marlboros. I won't get cancer. She doesn't see me smoke. Will you be laughed at for being so stupid? But that's how we think of morality. Not doing what someone else said or doing what someone else said. That's schizophrenic as the main reason. No, it's natural law, Buddha says. That if you would, like we know with health, that smoking could cause cancer. It's a natural law. No one made it up. It's observation from doctors. Same here. Buddha has observed with his own ingenious mind at a subtle level, having seen the past and the future, that this law of karma is the law that runs the universe. No one runs it. It's not punishment and it's not reward, because there's no such thing as a punisher and a rewarder for Buddha. This really takes time to hear, because we all want to be good girls and not be bad girls. It's very deep in our bones. That's ego's function, you know. Which means it's the blame, guilt, shame, bad, good, punishment, reward mode. We created that view. It's very fascinating, this. So when we begin to get this view about karma, let's say we take it on board as our working hypothesis, we choose to use Buddha's views as our basis for life, that's our call, then we have to learn it. If you want to abide by the laws of karma, which is the Buddha's suggestion of how you live your life, why? Because that's the method for getting happy and stopping suffering, which we'll go into. Then you do it out of confidence. You decide you want to be confident. First, theoretically, you can't prove it experientially, yet you're not clairvoyant. So you make a decision that that's the basis of the way you're going to lead your life. You use that as your basis. So that's why then you go as a Buddhist, oh yeah, I believe in karma. That's stupidity. It's like saying, oh, I believe in botany. I'm happy you do. It works. But what good will it do you? I believe in numbers. I'm very pleased. And your mother says, go buy 5 oranges and you can't count. What good is it to believe in it? That's the point. And that's where we think of religion. You've got to believe in it. It's superstition. It's intellectual laziness. You don't believe in karma, botany. It's a law that works. If you don't want to be a gardener, then don't worry about it. But if you want to have a garden, you can't just believe in botany, you've got to know how to do it. You can't just believe in mathematics, it works. Other people say it works, you see them making it work, but if you want to go buy 5 oranges, you better learn how to count. And if you want to live your life according to Buddha's laws and say you're a Buddhist, you better learn the nuts and bolts, the minimum requirement of exactly what karma means, the most basic level, you know. You have to. Kind of believing in karma is ridiculous. Oh, why did that happen? Oh, it's karma. Please explain it. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, it's botany. How does it work? I don't know. That's stupid. And that's how we think of religion, you know. Because we assume you can't prove it. You assume you can't even know it. That's not the Buddha's view. But it takes us a while to hear this. Because there are all these assumptions that you can't prove reincarnation, you can't prove, you know, past and future lives, you can't prove clairvoyance. We assume that because that's the view of our creative religions, and that's reasonable, because if God's the boss, your job is not to prove him right. That's about the worst sin of pride you could ever do. You don't try to prove God is right. You believe in God. I am not complaining. But that's not the Buddha's view. Buddha was a regular guy. He says, this is what I did to become a Buddha. It's up to you, you know, you follow the steps. And then, as the Dalai Lama says, if you follow Buddha's methodology and you're ticking the boxes as you go, which is the point, you get to a certain point where you prove he's wrong, well, of course you must reject him. That's why believing, you'll never know if he's right or wrong, just believing it. And our trouble is we'll believe anything anyone tells us. We're as thick as posts, you know. Well, maybe not everybody. I am. We really do believe anything anyone tells us. Oh, she said, that we say, as if that's valid proof, you know. Why'd you do that? Oh, she said to. Like infants, you know. There's a friend of mine in New York, she's Indian, from this continent. And she's got an ex-boyfriend. Apparently it's quite well known. He made a movie, a documentary. He decided to pretend to be a Hindu guru. He started a pretend ashram. everybody got faith in him and asked him to be their guru. And he then just exposed it as a complete joke to show how idiotic people are when it comes to spiritual. Would have been very embarrassing, but that's exactly I know two people, one in Australia who pretends to be a nun, but she's got the gift of the gab, you know. She's got speech that people believe. She's a chronic, mentally ill liar. But she walks around giving talks as a Buddhist. No, nobody but thinks she's gorgeous. And she's a complete, shocking liar, and exactly the same in America. One American fellow who lies. Every single word he says is a lie. He can't help it, just lies all the time. Chronic, mentally demented, chronic. But he pretends to be a Buddhist monk, has a Buddhist centre. People have faith in it. Even when he was exposed, he came on one of our pilgrimages. He stayed with Jean.
Oh, I know.
That boy.
Yeah.
He's a total mentally ill person. Totally demented, mentally ill person, you know. But people believe his words.
He was Jean's roommate.
That's right, exactly. That's right, on the pilgrimage. And then he even asked me to teach at his centre, and I did initially. And then I discovered, because everything he kept saying, every email he said. And then apparently he started to tell everybody, because one person wrote to me really worried, and I mean, you can't describe the things he made up every second, you know. So eventually I discovered, and I had to expose him. It was just too shocking. So I wrote like 12, 14 points, wrote to him, and then wrote to him and exposed every single point, and then copied his board. But people still refused to accept. They adored him, even though the proof was he's a liar. This is so fascinating. So everybody believed it, even when he's proved to be a liar, you know. I mean, look at Mr. Trump. We're going to talk about karma, but there's one kind of karma where it is the way you're seen and treated by others. Well, he has got this we can just deduce he's got really powerful karma from God knows how many lifetimes ago of speaking the truth. Because 50 million people adore him, believe every word he says. There's even a group of fundamentalist Christians, particular kind of Christians, I read about it, who really believe he's a special gift from God. It doesn't matter what he does. They believe definitely he's a special gift from God to save the planet of whatever they want to save the planet from. It's fascinating, isn't it? So you better use your noggin, Buddha says. Logic and proof. Don't just believe what you're told. And of course that means first theoretically. So the entry-level junior school, as Lama Zopa says, the most urgent level of practice is to at least, with our body and speech, stop harming sentient beings. Why? Because every action we do leaves a seed in the mind that then produces a future fruit. That's it. So because you don't want future suffering, you don't want cancer, so you stop smoking. You don't want to be born in the lower realms, be harmed in the future by others, killed by others. Of course this is abstract for us, but this is the logic, you know. That's the basis of wanting to abide by the laws of karma, deciding to use Buddha's view of good ethics as your basis for life. First level, entry level, junior school, grade 1. That's it. So now if we want to let's start unpacking this. Let's see if we can see some logic in at least the theory of this. So there are 4 ways, Buddha says, that our actions from the past, the word karma means action. It means action. But the real meaning is mental action, intention, I will, volition. If you want a boss in here, that's the boss. Intention, I will. And there's every millisecond we have intentions, but 99% of them, they're just instincts, because we practiced everything to perfection. We become programmed in this life, just programmed with our instincts. You know, we don't even analyze, we don't look, and we don't notice that we have intentions. As Alex Berzin says, they're more like urges. That's what we mean by instinct, you know. So there are 4 broad ways, 4 tracks of karma. There are 4 ways, if we look at our life, 4 ways of dividing our experiences of life, 4 kind of tracks that are the fruit of past actions. Because our previous actions of playing the piano are the cause of you being a good musician today. So the actions we've done in the past ripen in our life today. First general point. Second general point, the Buddha would divide, he says very simply, we could divide all of our experiences into 2 kinds. Happy experiences, suffering experiences. One way of framing all of Buddha's teachings really is in terms of how to get happy, how to stop suffering. The Buddha's package of the teachings known as the Four Noble Truths is all in terms of how to stop suffering. That's one way of saying all of Buddha's path is that. It's a method for how to stop suffering, which implies how to get happy. So basically in our life, and we look at it, it's really quite simple. We have three kinds of experiences, three kinds of experiences. We have those that are suffering experiences, and we know there's a whole range of them. And there's a whole bunch of experiences of happiness and a whole range of those. There's a third lot they call neutral, but don't worry about those. That's not hardly even the issue for us at the moment. Don't even worry about them. We either have happy experiences or unhappy, and there's a spectrum of those we can see. It's very clear. So the next point about karma, this natural law of karma for the Buddha, he didn't make it up, he has observed it, is that a negative action will leave a seed in the mind that could ripen in any of these four ways. And a positive action leaves a seed in the mind that could ripen in any of these four ways as a happy experience. The negative action will ripen as a suffering experience in any of these four ways. This is the next level of the fundamental law. And again, it's not punishment, it's not reward. There's no punisher, there's no rewarder. It's a natural law. These words are so simple, but to really get this takes us time, like I said, you know. So what are those four ways? If we look into our life now, we can see them. The first is the type of rebirth we get. So clearly this is assuming we have other options. Well, there's a whole spectrum of options, Buddha says, all in terms of levels of happiness to the most intense suffering. Different options of types of rebirth, again, from Buddha's observation. So in our case, let's just say we can agree we're humans. And for the Buddha, the first way our past karma has ripened is in getting a human mummy. Our mind, not more than a few weeks before our mind found its way to our mummy's fallopian tube, where it joined the sperm of daddy, which is the moment of conception, not more than a few weeks before that, our consciousness, this continuity of mental moments, clearly at a subtler level, was in another body. This is a given for the Buddha. It's all there in the literature. It's all dealt with, you know. It's all there. We'll go into all this. So at the time of our death, we can deduce, and this is it, we're going to go into the death process. It's very fascinating. This is coming from Lama Zopa's book, put out a couple of years ago, about how to help your loved ones at the time of death. There's a really crucial time for Buddhists. As Lama Zopa says in this book, you know, if you want to help your beloveds, if you want to help them in this life, when they need you most is at the time of death, which is the exact opposite of what we think in the materialist world. We're like, you're dead now, what the hell, you know? But it's the exact opposite for the Buddha, because at the time of death, it's very crucial and it's very technical. The process of death is described in great detail, especially in the esoteric teachings, which is the basis of the Tibetan medical system, and we'll discuss this. There's a very technical process that occurs. And the mind at the time of death gets very fearful. We'll go into all this. So at that time of death, it's crucial to enable the person, whether it's the mouse, your pet, your grandma, to be peaceful. Because when the mind is peaceful, the mind is virtuous. And when the mind is virtuous, that condition is what enables one of the virtuous karmic seeds. And we've got another analogy. We've got like 4 bank vaults. I know that Buddha doesn't talk about bank vaults, which is a good analogy. Because everything we think and do and say pops seeds in these bank vaults. Really crudely speaking, okay? So at the time of our death, the main bank vault, which contains these billions of seeds, negative and positive ones, that will produce the kind of rebirth we get. So at the time before we even stop breathing, a few weeks before we found our way to our mummy's womb, fallopian tube, we can deduce we must have died peacefully. Because one of our virtuous, positive, karmic seeds of particularly non-killing, particularly and in general non-harming, a very powerful, intentional seed, nourished, as Lama Zopa says, practiced, as Lama Zopa says, in the context of a spiritual path in the past, and even more than that, probably practiced in the context of keeping vows of morality. Vows are so powerful. We'll go into this for the Buddha. And that nourished that seed, and one of those seeds was triggered about the time before we stopped breathing. And that already programmed us to go to our present mummy's fallopian tube a few weeks later. Maybe she hadn't even met Daddy yet, but you already planned to go there. First result of karma, the type of rebirth you get. Winning the lottery. For the Buddha, getting a human body is like winning the lottery. Not like the lottery. It's not luck, but it's like that. So rare. I mean, there are probably 7 billion mosquitoes in that one tree over there, and during the rainy season. You know, 7 little billion humans, like nothing. If you compare with all sentient beings, Buddha says there are countless trillions of sentient beings. Mind possessors, the term in Tibetan, Sem Chen. So the first way for us, and our first way our karma ripened as a result of incredible virtue, was that we programmed ourselves, or before we even stopped breathing in the past life, to get this human womb. Second, at the same time, triggered, has to be at the same time, was all the trillions of karmic seeds in the next bank vault, which would manifest as our personality traits, our characteristics, our tendencies. And this is a really clear point for the Buddha. Your mother and father haven't even hopped into bed yet. 0 to do with your genes, 0 to do with your brain, 0 to do with them. Not 0, but in terms of the real main cause, your own personality traits, your tendency to be good, to be bad, to rape, to kill, to be loving, to be good at music, to be good at football, whatever. Whether it's Mother Teresa or Hitler tendency, they're your habits, baby. They're a bunch of habits from having done them before. They're triggered. Third, and this one's called experiences similar to the cause. And if you look at your life, from the second we are conceived up until now, look at our lives. We have been impacted upon by countless sentient beings, haven't we? Mummy, daddy, and then siblings and aunties and uncles and the rats in your kitchen, your pussycat, your dog, all the birds out in the back garden, your next door neighbours, aunties, uncles. Think about your life up to now. There have been people who have been mean to you, and there are people who have been kind to you, and they often swap roles. Forget the ones who do neither. They're the strangers, and there's 99.999% of them. Forget them. But there are those who have been mean to us in our life, and there are those who have been kind to us. Think of your life. That's it. That's it. That's it. And that's all sentient beings. We're very social creatures. It's powerful karmic history with every one of those people. If this is a natural law, and Buddha says it is, it can't be random. Nothing in your garden can come randomly. That just shows you don't know botany. Same here, as shocking as it sounds to us. So this first one is called the fully ripened result, the type of rebirth you get. The second one is called your tendencies similar to the cause, your personality traits. The third one is called your experiences similar to the cause. And this is an example about those that pretend monk and pretend nun. Due to their past truth-telling, way back whenever, because there's 4 tracks of karma, certain people have very strong connection with them to believe their words, even though they're maniac liars. I remember when I was a little girl, I consciously lied. And I remember people believed me. And I remember thinking to myself, I'd better be careful with my words if people believe me when I'm lying. I remember that very well. At school, you know. This is called experiences similar to the cause. And if you think about it, this is the area of our life where we suffer most, when it comes to suffering, and when we're happy most. When people are loving to us, kind to us, you win the lottery, the bank gives you credit, the food's delicious, the people look after you, people believe your words. This is because we crave to be happy, and we assume happiness comes from out there. So when we get all the happiness, that's what we call happiness. And then when the suffering happens, you blame, people lie to you, they steal from you, they don't give you credit. You know, it's like a nightmare, it's like hell on earth for us. But both of these experiences, main cause, your past actions like that. And karma's pretty personal. The fourth one is called environmental karma. This sounds initially very abstract. And maybe we'll go into trying to explain just theoretically how that can be possible, you know. Quanta's Vajrayana model of the universe. We'll describe it later, we'll go into it. Even the way the physical environment impacts upon us. So any action we do, good or bad, can have any of these 4 results. So let's say you have this conscious, there's the action of conscious non-killing. The 4 results. First, a type of rebirth, human for example, a decent human rebirth. Second, you be born with a tendency to not kill. You wake up in this life like that friend of mine, Date Chen in Queensland, her little boy when he was 3, crying with compassion for the lice in his own head. Mummy hadn't had time to teach him yet. Mummy, don't hurt them, it's their home, leave them alone. little boy, you know. And he's 40-something now, never killed a living thing. So we can deduce from the Buddhist perspective, it's not just potluck. He, from his own past non-killing and his compassion, so at the age of 3, he's crying with compassion for lice in his own head. And not only didn't want to harm them, even had compassion. The tendency to not kill. That's rare on this planet. Look at this planet. And this is a tragedy. Not being rude, but I was taught as a Catholic, God made the animals for my sake. He made the creatures for our benefit. Buddha does not agree with that. They're all sentient beings. They've all been your mother. They've all been human countless lives. They all want to be happy. They all don't want to suffer. So baby, don't harm any of them, okay? The third way non-killing will ripen in this life, and so far that's for us, you don't get killed and you won't die young. Well, we're getting closer to old age, so we can die now, you know, soon. That's the fruit of non-killing. And you can extrapolate the fruit of killing. You get killed, you die young. Look at this planet. I mean, I always think if you did some market research about fetuses that don't get born, that means either abortions or miscarriages. I wouldn't be surprised if you'd find the biggest number of people who get a human body, meaning from conception, mummy and daddy hop into bed, they go through this certain period, they die, they've got a virtuous karmic seed to be born as a human, the new mummy and daddy hop into bed and they go running and get a human womb, but those, and then who die before they're born. I bet the number will be bigger than those who even get born. And then look at those who are born, who get aborted after they're killed when they're a baby, killed when they're 2, killed when they're 7, die at 15, no medical reason. Buddha's main reason for dying young, past killing. Buddha's main reason for not dying young, in this particular one called experiences similar to the cause, is past non-killing. It's still petrol in our petrol tank, you know. And the fourth way our karma ripens, environmental, in terms of non-killing, whatever you eat will nourish you, you'll be fat and healthy, air will be delicious, water's delicious, food's delicious, and even if it's lousy food, it'll still nourish you. That's why I always quote Warren Buffett. This mega rich big fella, mega rich, who happens to also have a lot of money. He's like 90 now, I'd say, nearly 90. And I read his biography years ago, and his daughter said, I've never seen water pass his lips. His diet since a little boy up to today: cheeseburgers, vanilla ice cream, and some flavoured Coca-Cola. I don't know which one. And he's 90 and he's fit. I mean, the medical profession should be shocked by that, you know. So for the Buddha, all the external parts of the world play a role. Food you eat does play a role. Everything out there does play a role. We think it's the main thing. Buddha says, no, it's only secondary, catalyst. We are the main cause, past karma. This view is very shocking. It's so different, both from the materialist view and from the Christian view, you know. Let's say, for example, it's quite shocking, hard to hear. And like I said, the experiential implication of it is, we're the boss. That's why I like it. I'm quite sure that's the reason I liked it when I was little. I could be the boss, you know. But it takes a while. We don't like being the boss. We'd rather blame someone else for the good things and the bad things. So that's the essence of karma. Oh, it's only 4 o'clock. What time is it? What time is it?
4:45.
Oh no, I talk so fast I get everything done quickly, don't I? What can I do? Oh, tea time coming soon. So ask you some questions, come on. Tea at 5 o'clock. They've been having tea here at 5 o'clock for like 45 years. I don't think I think that this rule will never change. I mean, it was so inconvenient with the courses. 5 o'clock was sort of the wrong time for tea, but somehow you can't. It's been there since I first came here, even before that. 5 o'clock is tea time. Okay, so questions now. Questions? Yes, Chuck.
I have a 9-to-5 job. Wake up at 8 o'clock, in a rush to get ready to go to work, go into the shower. The ants, it's hot outside this time of year, the ants have invaded my shower. Mm-hmm. Not to kill any sentient beings.
So what do you do about it?
What do I
I'm asking you, what do you do about it? It's on to you, not me.
I turn on the shower and take my shower, but that's...
So you kill all the ants?
I mean, that's happened, yes.
Right. So what do you think? Based on what I just said, just analyse it. Just speak it out, just analytically speak it out what I just said.
Shower in the sink?
No, I didn't say that. Speak out. Okay, you're just telling me that you sowed certain seeds, and you know that those seeds will bring fruits. So what kind of fruits will this bring, based on what you've just heard from the Buddha?
Well, it's going to bring seeds of short life.
Of whose?
Mine.
Right. So then, seeing as you're the boss, what would you do about it? That's the whole point, Jack. It's sort of, we'd rather hear, oh, can I please, it's sort of like going to the doctor. Listen, I really can't stop smoking. Can you please get me off the hook and stop getting me cancer? I'm so sorry, or can you please forgive me and not give me cancer? That's how we think of it.
Prevent the ants from coming in the first place.
Well, once we make a decision about something, let's say you know that you'll get really sick if you eat sugar. We are so intelligent. First, you have to know, even theoretically, the likely consequences of an action. Then we have to decide to take that on board as our philosophy. And then once we are theoretically convinced about that, we obviously then, because we're so intelligent, we will think of every way possible to make sure we do it. We are the boss, but it's so hard. It is so hard.
Yeah, I'm not looking for special.
No, I know, exactly. But this is what you just have to, we have to think it through. I mean, it's not that easy. And that's why, anyway, it's not that easy. And it's so normal for us in our culture. And this is our culture back since the time of the Greeks, I think. The Christians, the Jews, the Greeks before that, and now our scientists, there's not value in ants and creatures. So it's long, thousands of years of history of not valuing other creatures. Whereas if you brought up in India, okay, maybe India now is a bit different, but karma was the default mode for several thousand years. So that's why Tibetans, 99% of Tibetans before they left Tibet were all Buddhists. They wouldn't even harm a worm, There wasn't even environmentalism in Tibet because there was no imbalance of the environment, because no one harmed the environment, no one harmed the creatures. The wildlife was almost not wild because no one harmed. It was such a fundamental thing among Tibetans, for example. But in our culture, it's really hard. And as we go along in the days, there's lots of things about karma, and there are various things we can do karmically. But the starting point has to be, okay, if this is the way I want to live my life, that means I'm going to try and do what I can to not kill sentient beings. And it's a drag. It means extra work, extra effort. But I think we're very intelligent, and once we decide something, then we can make it happen, I'd say. I'll never forget our friend Pemo, this nun who's a meditator, and she was up at our place you were there. She was there for the manager for a couple of years. This retreat centre in the middle of nowhere. Land of Kamabadi. Lama Zopa said, it's like a big walk in, isn't it? You have to walk there, don't you?
No.
You can get a jeep now.
No, yeah.
I thought you had to walk there once.
No.
Anyway, it's kind of quiet, is it?
It's in the
middle of nowhere.
area, yeah.
500 acres or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, Pemo, this nun friend of ours, was meditating there for a few years, and people have their big stacks of food, like bags of wheat and things, especially Pemo, right? Exactly. So anyway,
To bring in all your food.
yeah. So whatever happened though, when those weevils that turn into moths. Yeah. Okay, so she had a bag. She had these moths bombarded by probably thousands, if not hundreds, of moths. So she was telling Rinpoche how for weeks, released it outside for weeks. One moth at a time. Now that's pretty incredible, isn't it? That's pretty powerful, isn't it? Yeah. Very humble, and that's just not just because of her own sake. It's also compassion. That's intense.
And the random spider that appears or whatever, I'm good at catching those.
That's right. So I think obviously with
a million ants.
I know. I think with ants and all those creatures, it's got to be preventative. It's got to be preventative. And I mean, we're so intelligent in the West. We can look into. We're such geniuses. We can find methods to prevent. But there's other things karmically we can do as well that can help shift things, and we'll discuss that as time goes by. What else, people? Questions? No questions? Any old question? Nothing? Yes.
So, what's the best way to purify karma and past killing?
But you know already, you've been in the course, you've been hearing it for years. Purification, the four opponent powers. You know that. Why you ask me?
Well, there's different ways to do it, and
No, there aren't.
well, like there's Nyungne retreats and stuff.
Oh no, but it comes to the same thing. That's the method, that's the remedy. The principles are the same, the 4 steps. But we won't discuss that now. We'll go that later. That's the third one, the remedy. There are lots of remedies, lots of different medicines, but there's other 3 steps as well. We'll go into all that later. Any other questions? Nothing.
Western culture seems to think of, well, maybe the Beatles brought this, instant karma.
The Buddha would say only very few actions, the heaviest of the heaviest of the heaviest negative or the most marvelous of good actions would be so-called instant. Very rare. Usually seeds take many lifetimes even to ripen. This is where it's hard for us to get around, our head get around this one. It seems very puzzling. But if we take the view that I just said, that at the time of your death, in the part before you even got to anywhere near this new womb, all your life's mapped out. You're programmed to become this human. You're programmed to have this particular personality traits. You're programmed to have all the experiences that you have. And you're programmed to have the physical environment impact upon you the way it does. That's all programmed before you even die in the past life. So that means everything in this life is the fruit of past, which is nothing special. Everything in that garden is not the fruit of what you put there yesterday. What's in that garden is the fruit of something you might put there 20 years ago. So we know that seeds, there's a delay between a seed planting and a seed ripening. That's very clear, and that's for sure with karma. But this is a very shocking concept to us. Can't get our head around that one initially, you know. So we'll discuss it in more detail as time goes by. What else?
Well, I would just have a comment, because it seems that that's because of this time lag between the result
And the seed, yeah.
It's what makes it difficult to
have confidence in it.
Have confidence.
No, exactly, I know, exactly, it really is.
Nagarjuna said it's too bad that when we step on above, one of our ribs doesn't break.
Yeah, there you go, that's right, I know, it's very interesting, isn't it? If karma were instant, we'd all be Buddhas by now. Because we'd see the result coming, you know, but we don't, it's like we'd all be Buddhas by now. If we, you know, like, what's that Pavlov's dog one? Isn't it every time something you do, you get knocked, or you get rewarded every time you do the good thing, or punched in the nose every time a bad thing happened? We would be Buddha immediately. I mean, it's like when you play the piano, the minute you play the wrong note, there's no delayed reaction, you just hear the wrong note right there. You don't wait 10, 27 years for the result, you'd be in serious trouble. So and that's where, see, one of the biggest confusions I think for us, if we're a good person in this life, fairly good tendencies, nice person, doesn't kill, doesn't lie, we just assume good things should happen to us. It's very fascinating, this, and we're going to go into this in great detail. This is the assumption of attachment, which is just such a load of nonsense. But we believe it from the depths of our heart, which is why we ask the question, why do bad things happen to good people? But equally, it's why do good things happen to bad people? It's exactly the same point. But we never ask why do good things happen, only the bad things. So it really freaks us out to think you can be a good person and have bad things happen to you. But equally, when we think you're a bad person and good things happen, that feels really unfair, you know. Because we assume there's a logic between those two, but they're separate tracks of karma. In other words, born in this life, you might have a tendency to never lie, but you've got the karma to not be believed from past karma of lying. You might, like I said, lie, but you have the karma from past truth-telling to be believed now. So there's no direct relationship in a fundamental way. There isn't some level of there's a reasonable relationship. You know, if I'm kind to somebody, and you might just say kind things back, that makes sense to us. But technically, that's not because of that. Technically, that's the fruit of a past virtuous action as well. It's really quite complex, actually. But it really is hard for us to get our head around that one, which is why we suffer so terribly when bad things happen, and we can see very evidently in this life we did nothing to deserve it. That's the biggest shock in the materialist world, because there's no explanation. Even if you're a Christian or a Muslim, even these Muslims in New Zealand, they're all saying it's God's will, blah, blah, blah. They know God's got a plan, and they're prepared to accept. I think that's pretty profound, quite frankly. I would never criticize that. But the materialist view, scientifically, we haven't got explanations yet. Do you understand my point? So that's why we're so anguished. Why is this happening to me? I don't deserve it, we think. You know? It's a very powerful one. What else, people? Before we have tea. Nothing? No questions? Well, we should have tea then. And then we have to have dinner. Are you all packed, ready to go? 4:30 we have to leave, isn't it? I think be ready for 4:30. It's always, not trying to make you nervous, but always chaotic at the airport. Nothing's, especially Kathmandu to Lukla, it's just like chaos, you know? And it's almost, honestly, it's like first in, first served. Especially at Lukla, it's like first in, first served. It's like escaping, it's like you always imagine, it's like, you know, in those documentary movies about escaping Vietnam in those helicopters. It feels like that, you know. Last minute, and I know the first trek we did, we like a miracle, and part of it was because I was like this big bull, would not let go, went and found the guy. Who was that name? Where's Christina? She's not here. Oh, okay. But the guy who runs the hotel up there, I can't think of his name, in Lukla, and he comes down, he organises everything. He's like, he knows everything. But I remember being like a bull. I said, demanded he go and talk to the, what do you call the air traffic control people, and like a miracle, we got the last flight. Because if you're stuck there, you can be stuck there for days, you know. And you also heard about this new thing we only just heard about? Coming back from Lawudo. On now the bloody 1st of April, a new law has come that now we've got to be delivered to an airport 4 hours out of Kathmandu.
Out of Lukla.
Yeah, no. Coming back to Kathmandu on the 3rd of April, we now got to go to an airport 4 hours away. We just heard about it.
From Lukla to...
Yeah, there's an airport was 4 hours, and we got to, after Lukla and all the trek, we got to climb into a jeep that now drives for 4 hours to get us to the Hyatt. Assuming we get our flight early, that's the end of the trek. I'm not trying to get you all unhappy. But that's a brand new, so it's extra, we've got an extra piece of purification in our trek, okay? Extra 4 hours in jeeps. I just heard about it. It's a brand new law. They're closing down this airport to fix it up. So we've got to be, some flights are going to this other airport. 4 hours jeep ride away. It is. We've got to work extra hard. At least you can not have to walk. You can take a jeep and relax. Okay, so it's tea time. So we think, okay, we'll listen to these ideas. Any of these seeds went in. We'll discuss it as we go along. Maybe nourish these seeds so they ripen as we discussed at 4 o'clock when we started, in the development of our amazing potential for the sake of all sentient beings. So the sort of the beginning one, I like to think of 2 bookends. There's the motivation and the dedication, propping up our action of listening to the teachings. So may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. Jangchub semchog rinpoche ma kye panam ke gyuchig kye panyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pelba shog. That's it. So now we think about tea differently, okay? We'll do different blessings, different ways of thinking. One way of describing all of Buddhism is Buddha's getting us to see everything differently. So, in order to create more virtue. So normally what drives us to a cup of tea is attachment, you know? And then we see tea through the lenses of whether we like it or not. So let's now see it in terms of kindness. We know that people made that tea. We know people washed the cups and dried the cups. People mixed the milk or whatever they did. People made this, they made that. They did the water. People picked it up. They brought it from the kitchen upstairs, put it on the table. Lots of human beings have been involved in this tea, you know. So we think how kind they are. We're going to drink this tea with a happy mind so we can be nourished, so we can continue listening to Buddha's teachings and developing our marvelous potential, so we can be a benefit to others. So putting a new motivation in there completely changes the character of the action of the karma, and we'll discuss that. So then enjoy your tea. And we'll see you at dinner's at 6:30. So we'll come back, I think come back briefly. It's a very short session just to finish the day. 7:30 for half an hour. Yeah? I think so, don't you? No reason to come any earlier, is there? That's enough, isn't it? Get packed and ready to go. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you soon. See you.